the country that ignited the Arab Spring is experiencing its troubled legacy. Rodri Davis, Al Jazeera.
Well, let's speak to Stephen McInerney, who's the Executive Director of the Project on Middle East Democracy, and he joins me now from our Washington studio. Stephen, good to have you with us. So they've promised a new technocrat caretaker government. Elections have been promised to take place rapidly. Do you think that will be enough to calm the street protests?
Not alone. I think they're promising, initial responses by the government, but I think more is going to have to be done. I think that people in Tunis are going to want to see some accountability. I think that that would probably be the most important step if the government can conduct a fair investigation, find out who's responsible for this killing, and hold them accountable. I think that's probably the most important thing. However, returning to a technocratic government could be something positive. Tunisia was relatively well served by its technocratic government in the interim period in 2011, so that could help things as well.
And really, the killing is sort of the low point of recent heightened political tension in Tunisia. We've seen growing unhappiness with the government. We've seen widening divisions between secularists and Islamists. Why is this happening?
I think we've seen a sort of slow escalation of tensions between the two sides, a very sharp polarization in Tunisia that's really hardened over the past 6 to 8 months. This is not the first violent incident we've seen. It is the most high profile, the most damaging to Tunisia's sort of political dynamics. But there have been sort of a series of lower level incidents of violence. We've seen steadily escalating rhetoric on both sides, sort of demonizing the other side and blaming the other side for all of Tunisia's problems with its transition. So I think, to many observers, this sort of escalation of violence is not that surprising. It sort of follows upon escalation of the polarization in society that we've already been seeing.
And it's not the only one. All of this really highlights the struggle for transition that we've seen in other post-revolution countries like Egypt, like Libya. There is a fear that the freedom that people fought for simply hasn't materialized.
Yes, I think these transitions take time, and people aren't always that patient, and they also are very worried that the freedoms that they went to the street for not only haven't materialized yet, but won't. And there's a real lack of trust. I think you have the people in the current government are new to governing, and I think they've not earned the sort of confidence and the faith of their opponents, and who see them as sort of responding to their supporters alone and not really representing all Tunisians. So I think it's an environment in which sort of a lack of trust and lack of real progress can sort of spiral and get out of control.
So do you think that having new elections, could that bring stability to Tunisia?
Not alone. I think new elections could be potentially, a step in the right direction. We don't know exactly how those elections will come out. I think it's quite clear that Ennahda party, the dominant party in the current ruling coalition, I think it's quite clear that they will, again receive a sizable share of the seats in parliament, if not the most sizable share. It will probably look like a different coalition with other parties. It could be a positive step, if parties that don't feel represented now have, a larger stake in the new government. But I think in addition to this, there has to be real progress, and the government has to make strides in holding people accountable for this violence and violence that has happened previously. I think they also need to really address the sort of dire need to reform the security sector. I think that's also something that this highlights, is that the security forces in Tunisia have not really been reformed and upgraded since before the revolution, and that they're not either trusted by the people or really capable of preventing this type of violence.
Interesting stuff. Stephen, thank you very much indeed for speaking with us. Stephen McInerney there, speaking to us from Washington, D.C.
Thank you.
France has asked the UN Security Council to deploy a peacekeeping force